For those of you who regularly peruse Destiny's Grimoire, there are certain cards that may have drawn your attention due to their ambiguity. With the release of the most recent April update, several new Grimoire cards have been added, sporting some very interesting glints of information, specifically referencing a certain individual by the name of Zyre Orsa. Much like a Tolkien novel wherein much of the non-English dialogue remains untranslated save for in the appendices, there is no real explanation of who Zyre is and how he's related to the Destiny storyline. Except in the Grimoire. However, that's where I come in, reading the lore, so you don't have to. Zyre is mentioned in several cards, but the manner in which he appears is unusual and unintuitive. Well, then again, being forced to learn the lore of a game outside of the game is unusual and unintuitive itself, so well, there you go. For those of you who are familiar with Destiny's lore, the term Weapons of Sorrow should sound familiar. Bad Juju, Thorn, Touch of Malice, and Necrochasm are all weapons of darkness, purified by the light of the Guardians. Dredgen Vale, once known as Rezalazir, utilized his rose hand cannon in the service of the city and the Traveler. Over time, as he grafted the trophies of numerous encounters with the minions of the darkness, the rose began to change, and him along with it. The weapon, no longer a rose, but a withered, thorny husk, corrupted him, made him less and more. Enter Zyre Orsa, hunter, crucible runner, and disciple of Dredgen Vale. Of his past we know very little, but we do know that at some point in his life, in service to humanity, Zyre came into contact with Dredgen Vale, or at least his legend. In the course of this encounter, Zyre took inspiration from Vale, taking up the name of Dredgen Vale. Ghost Fragment, the Cauldron. A warlock says, "We were facing a full squad. I recognized a couple of them, Orsa, Tebben, but they were different. Decked out in dark gear and set to intimidate, I took it as an attempt at psychological warfare. You know, up the creep factor in a creepy place. But it was more than that. They had changed." This was evidently prior to, or witness to, the advent of Orsa's identity as Vale. As we see in Ghost Fragment Timekeeper, a conversation between a Titan and a hunter concerning Vale's antics in the Crucible. "Never seen anything like it. Orsa, or Vale, whatever he calls himself. Coming out on top wasn't even in his plans. He'd just drop us and leave our crests scattered around the combat zone. I don't think he collected one. Others didn't care. Figured it gave them a chance to pull the win. But I cared. Win or not, that kind of cocky ain't healthy." To which his companion replies, "I don't think cocky is the right word." I believe in matches like these, Vale is making a statement. He's saying, look at the power I can wield and how the lot of you are so utterly unprepared to face me. Indeed, we see in the Ghost Fragment Thorn 5 that Vale sees the utilization of dark powers as a form of progress, an advancement too long untapped and shunned due to fear and paranoia. We have tamed the sickness, broken it with unwilling sacrifice. Now we claim our reward. Have you heard the whispers, brothers, sister? The shadow speaks. All we have to do is listen. Its secrets are a gift. Its gift, our evolution. The others misunderstand. We are the weapons of sorrow, living and free. The hated heroes of this broken age. If any of you have ever seen Hellsing Ultimate, you'll know what I mean when I say I'm reminded of the Iscariot organization of the Vatican, outfitted and authorized by the Church to remove any and all obstacles that might present themselves to the Church and its message. Even though things like murder, assassination, and mass slaughter are expressly against God's wishes, those who are part of the Iscariot organization are aware of this and willingly disobey God's commands for the betterment of the Church. Martyrs who knowingly sin so greater evil might be avoided. But note how Vale calls himself and those who walk beside him weapons of sorrow, what was previously used to reference actual items and devices, not people. It may be that Vale and his contemporaries see themselves not as people, but as weapons, force incarnate wielded by the will of humanity. From the ghost fragment Blind Watch, we read, "I'm assuming you're aware of the events on Mars? You mean the results from Blind Watch? Yes. It may be starting again. Not saying it is, but we need to keep an eye on any who would seek to retrace Yor's path." Agreed. But Orsa and his friends seem to have contained what Yor could not. A dangerous assumption. The Thorn's pestilence is becoming commonplace. Vale and his compatriots aren't the only ones to bring about this revolution. We are also partly to blame. Yeah, all of us who use Thorn are likely proving Vale's point. The power of the darkness, purified and utilized by the Lightbearers, can be an immensely effective tool against the darkness. Many of you might have also noticed that Zyre Orsa, Dredgen Vale, isn't the only individual named in the aforementioned ghost fragments. There is another. Tebben Grey. As far as we can tell, Tebben is a follower of Dredgen Yor, same as Vale, and additionally seems to be a longtime friend, or at least ally, to him. In fact, there is only one other place Tebben is mentioned, and that is in a journal entry regarding the Shadows of Yor, which we can assume is the chosen name of their like-minded assembly. Though not stated, we can assume that Tebben is possibly a chronicler of some kind, recording the progress of the Shadows of Yor and preserving their findings for posterity. It reads, "The Shadows of Yor," from the Journal of Tebben Grey. They tried to hide the truth, but we followed its winding path, pieced together the fragmented map of events across time and space, quite literally, mind you. From Traveler's Shadow to the dark corridors beneath the moon and the long, harrowing journey back again. From the sickness inflicted upon the Crucible to the breaking of light on the red sands. From a forgotten settlement in the west to the horrors of North Channel and Velor. From the wilds of the Breaklands to the hateful colds of Durga. Finally then, to Dwindler's Ridge, where the darkness met pure, angry fire. We've traced your steps from beginning to end and back again. We've studied his reign, the terror he seeded, the violence he wrought as if free of conscience, only to discover a true and terrible thing. He was not simply the monster the legends claim him to be. Though, in finding this truth, we've come to understand the desire to build an armor of false narrative around all he'd done, all he'd become. Yet, that understanding, our understanding of the need to control Yor's mythology, should not be seen as agreement on the matter, quite the opposite actually. When viewed as he truly was, not as he's imagined, we challenge the known mythologized depiction of the man who was Dredgen Yor. In our estimation, the monster so many see was, in fact, the best of us. His sacrifice, total. His vile means meant to carve a greater end. They hid this truth because they fear the consequences of those who would dare follow his footsteps, to tempt the darkness, to allow one's light to be tainted. Few could walk to that ledge and not fall completely into despair. And while theories exist to support or contradict the purity of the gift we wield, Yor's life offers a glimpse into unexplored possibility. Orsa agrees. He also believes, as I do, that there is a manner in which we may be able to replicate Yor's damnation while avoiding the same heavy toll. We will surely be judged for what it is we're about to achieve, and there will surely come a time when the lone gunman will want words, or worse. But we go now upon an old path, one we seek to make our own. And should we fail, may the light avenge all those we make to suffer. And make no mistake, despite their lack of overt exposure, Vale, Tebben, and the rest of the Shadows of Yor are making big waves in the Guardian community, so much that even the legendary hunter Shin Malfur the slayer of Dredgen Vale, has taken notice of them. In a conversation with an unnamed ghost, Malphur speaks somberly about the shadows of yore and what their ultimate fate might be. Will you fight them? The ghost asks. The shadows? Those who have taken up arms in the name of yore. The hope is they are more careful than their inspiration. Do you believe that will make a difference? The ghost asks. There is silence. No. Then what will you do? The Vanguard has an eye on. The Vanguard have their eyes on many things. I'm aware. Then what will you do? More silence. What needs to be done? Ironically, even though Shin slew Dredgen Vale and has a first-hand experience with guardians who have fallen to the darkness, he hesitates when asked what he will do with the shadows if they ever turn to the darkness as well, trying to pass off the responsibility to the Vanguard instead of himself. The pauses inserted in the Grimoire card seem to be deliberate, indicating a reluctance to act, despite his declaration to the contrary. Perhaps it's hope on Shin's part that Vale and his compatriots will prove him wrong, and that their way of thinking isn't entirely incorrect. At the very least, we haven't seen the last of Dredgen Vale and Tevin Grey, or Shin Malphur. Their legends are just beginning, and I look forward to Destiny 2, where due to the heavy implications of our lightless status, the shadows of yore may very well be a source of power and learning. Perhaps in the course of our counterattack against Gaul and his Red Legion, we will learn to utilize the darkness from Vale, perhaps as a subclass. After all, if we don't have the light, then we have to use whatever is at our disposal. Let me know what you think about the shadows of yore, and whether they'll be important to the Destiny 2 plot. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up, and subscribe for more Destiny content. Until next time, I am the Blacklister. Fiducium in Tenebras, Guardians.